This is the Behind the Line podcast, coming to you from the crazy, chaotic lines of the Pacific Northwest. And big surprise, the first day of classes at Seattle Public Schools Wednesday was canceled, and teachers are on strike over issues that include pay, mental health support, and staffing ratios for special education and multilingual students. No one wants to strike, Seattle Education Association President Jennifer Matters said, but SPS has given us no choice. We can't go back to the way things have been. Contract talks continue. The district said in email to parents that it was optimistic the bargaining teams will come to a positive solution for students, staff, and families. Of course, they wait till the day before school starts to decide to go on strike, putting parents in a really tough spot. Where do you find childcare for your kid with such short notice? And then if you can't, what do you do about your job if you have one? In Seattle, that may not be as big of a problem, but you've had all summer to sort out your contract, but the teachers union always does this. It seems like every year they go on strike right as school is supposed to start. Why parents even keep their kids in the Seattle school district is beyond me. Of course, the teachers claim that it's all about the kids and wanting the resources to teach kids. That's partially true because Seattle is wanting to put mentally challenged kids who have been in their own classrooms back in with the general classrooms and not really give the teachers any assistance with paras or other people in the classroom to assist, which obviously is not really possible. A teacher can't deal with special needs kids and then teach regular kids at the same time. It just won't work, especially with all the laws and rules that are in place by our state to ensure the special needs kids get all these things met, during school. But, of course, the main focus also is pay. It's always pay. We need more money. And everybody does. Everybody needs more money. I just think it's wrong that the teachers union waits till school is starting to start a strike when they had all summer to deal with this issue. They knew it was coming, but this is a tactic, and it's a terrible one. Not really a good way to win the support of parents. There's lots of online options, good online options for kids to complete school, where they won't have to put up with this kind of garbage from teachers and staff and other students. So if your kids are old enough, something to consider. They will earn their education and high school diploma just like any other kid, and probably be better off and smarter than kids who went to public school. And for all you folks in Washington who voted for Tiffany Smiley, don't know if you caught her interview on CNN the other day. The GOP nominee for U.S. Senate in Washington said Sunday that she supports a law in her state guaranteeing the right to an abortion up to fetal viability. Yes, that would be childbirth in their minds. A rare Republican to take a stance supportive of abortion rights as her party navigates the delicate issue ahead of the November midterms. I do, Tiffany Smiley told CNN's Dana Bash on State of the Union when asked whether she supports a measure passed by her state in 1991 that declared a woman's right to receive an abortion before the fetus is deemed viable. I respect the voters of Washington State. They long decided where they stand on the issue. Smiley, who is challenging longtime Democratic Senator Patty Murray, has previously touted her pro-life views, while also asserting her opposition to a federal abortion ban, a position she reiterated in her interview with Bash. But her comments Sunday come on the heels of other Republicans attempting to deflect attacks on key social issues that could cost them votes in November. A little side note to this law: Washington's law provides exceptions in cases where the procedure would protect the life or health of the patient. And in March, the state legislature amended the law's language to ensure that people are guaranteed access to reproductive rights, including abortion, regardless of gender identity, allowing the statute to apply to transgender and non-binary people. Men cannot have babies. Washington State. This place is like an insane asylum when it comes to politics. The state also requires state-regulated health plans, including college student plans, to cover abortion services if they also cover pregnancy services. I look forward to ensuring that women have access to health care, contraception, that in a time of crisis here in Washington State, that they have every resource they need to make the best choice, Smiley told Bash. Abortion is not health care unless it's affecting the life of the mother. In that case, yes, I would say it's health care. But the fact that you made a poor social choice and don't want to look bad or don't want to deal with a baby, that's not health care. That's a mistake you made. And abortion definitely should not be used as contraception, which it seems to be in this country. Millions of babies aborted. So who are you going to vote for? It's the lesser of two evils, I guess. You got Patty Murray, who needs to go. And you got Tiffany Smiley, who may be masquerading as a Republican, but has some odd views for a Republican. And in the state that has no consequences for crimes committed by street people and repeat offenders, they've now moved on to deadbeat parents, or dads. Citing financial hardships for parents and longer stays in foster care for children, the Washington State Department of Children, Youth, and Families has stopped referring parents to child support collection after a child is placed into foster care. We know that most parents are already facing financial hardships when they come into contact with the child welfare system, DCYF Secretary Ross Hunter said in a Thursday news release, the same day the new policy went into effect. This old and misguided policy only deepened that hardship and made it harder for parents to get their kids home. Well, I'm sorry, you should be responsible for your children if you have them, and not the taxpayers of the state of Washington, because ultimately that's what this is saying, that we're going to pick up the tab for the cost of foster care. The DCYF referred to two studies in making its case for the new policy, a 2016 examination of Wisconsin's large regional variation in child support referral policy that indicated child support enforcement actions may increase the time the child remains in foster care, and two, a 2019 Washington State Department of Social and Health Services study that showed the state collected only 39 cents for each dollar spent trying to collect. Well, 39 cents per dollar is better than 0 cents per dollar, and it's less of a burden on state money and state taxpayers' money. It's not our job to pay for these deadbeats. You know what? Rack the bill up and let the kids go home, and then the parents can make payments on it. Whatever has to happen, but it's not the taxpayer's job to pick up the tab on yet another social service in Washington. Money was a secondary factor in the department's decision, according to Jason Wetstein, DCYF Director of Communications. Cost savings to the state is a side benefit, he told the Center Square in an email. The primary motivation is that referrals for child support collection tend to lead to more time in foster care, and the outcome we are looking for is to support reunification for youth when that is possible. And yes, it will save money for the state over time. Okay, it may save money from the state in collection services, but it will not. It's not going to save any money as far as the money that the state pays to foster parents taking care of the kids. And the fact is, for every one of these kids going back home, there's like 5 more waiting to go to foster care. The foster care system in this state is so broken, they don't have enough foster parents, so they actually have these kids in hotels where they're paying up to $1,000 a night. $1,000 a night to have a state social worker at the hotel with foster kids. This system is broken. The move away from child support collection comes on the heels of a report last month by the Washington State Auditor's Office that found DCYF could not provide sufficient records on $271 million in child care payments made to low-income families. Are you kidding me? Can't provide records? If this was a private business being audited by the state, you'd be shut down. You'd be shut down immediately. Why is it the state can get away with this stuff, but they hammer private businesses in the state of Washington for anything similar to this, which I'm going to talk about in a minute too. The report focused on how state agencies handled nearly $37 billion in federal funds between July 2020 and June 2021. At the time, Wetstein told the Center Square that might mean a financial ask of the state legislature next year so the agency can do a better job of tracking how it spends funds. Hey, give us more money so we can tell you how we spent all this money that we didn't pay any attention to. It's just a bunch of idiots running these state departments. In March, Governor Jay Inslee signed into law House Bill 2050, which ends parent pay, that is requiring parents to pay for their children's incarceration with a portion of their gross income. The legislation was requested by DCYF. So again, kids go to jail. You know, if you go to jail, they charge you for being in jail every day. And when you get out, you have a giant bill you get to pay. And it's the same thing with these kids in juvenile. Yes, somebody should pay for it. Why are the taxpayers paying for all this crap? We pay for everything in this state. Pure insanity. All right, there's two other stories I'm working on from Washington right now, and that is teacher class sizes, because I've been in contact with several teachers who have 20 plus pre-K through, fourth graders, different teachers, different grades, but they have more than 20 students in their class, and they're by themselves. And in some of these classes, they're expected to change diapers, which means they have to leave the room and leave this class full of little kids alone. And here's the issue. If you had a private child care center in the state of Washington, you have to have one worker for every 10 kids minimum. The kids cannot be left alone for any length of time. You can't expect a school teacher to effectively teach or do anything with these kids with a class that size. And these schools may have paras, but they only get the para for like an hour a day because the schools are so short on paras, they can only spend a small amount of time in each classroom. Again, a double standard for state level, and I'm not blaming the teachers at all. This is the state, this is school administrators. You've got this double standard. If this was a private business, they'd be shut down, they'd be put out of business, they'd be fined, there'd be all kinds of stuff going on. But nope, not for the state workers. The other one is from Olympia or Lacey. I haven't nailed it down yet, but a property owner had some homeless people move onto his property, and he asked them to leave, and they refused. And so he called the police. The police told him they could do nothing about it. And a few days later, he got a letter from the city or the county in the mail, and he was being issued a fine for having people camping on his property where they're not supposed to camp. I mean, are you kidding me? I guess it doesn't surprise me that stuff like this is going on, but ridiculous. Clackamas County, Oregon, a grand jury has declined to indict a former suburban Portland doctor on criminal charges of sexual misconduct and abuse of patients, finding there isn't enough evidence to prove the claims, the county district attorney's office announced. The grand jury heard testimony from 41 witnesses before returning a not true bill on the claims against Dr. David Farley, meaning prosecutors could not prove the allegations without a reasonable doubt. Really? 41 people and you can't prove it? They're all lying? They don't have enough evidence? Are you kidding me? Fairley, formerly of West Lynn, still faces a civil suit filed by dozens of patients who allege sexual abuse during his work at West Lynn Family Health Clinic, Legacy Meridian Park Hospital, and Providence Willamette Falls Medical Center, according to court records. In 2020, the Oregon Medical Board stripped Farley of his state medical license for dishonorable and unprofessional conduct and gross or repeated negligence. So they found enough evidence to strip his medical license. That same year, a judge denied a request by Farley to postpone the civil case against him. The suit alleged Farley performed unnecessary pelvic exams and engaged in sexual battery while the plaintiffs were in his care. Yeah, Oregon's not far behind Washington when it comes to consequences and people being responsible for their actions. This dude should go to jail. Period. Wildfires in Oregon routinely force evacuations, threatening people in their homes. The Oregon legislature took up the matter last year and passed Senate Bill 762 on wildfire prevention. The director of the state's Department of Land Conservation and Development, Brenda Ortigas Bateman, says the devastating wildfires in 2020 served as a wake-up call. Oregon lost 9 lives, 4,000 homes. We had 1 million acres of land burn and $1 billion spent on firefighting, she said. So in 2021, in the aftermath of that, the legislature tasked us with writing a set of recommendations. Basically, they were asking, how should we be using or developing our land given what we know about wildfire and its risks and impact? So I read through this. It's very wordy. It's 14 pages. Of course, it talks all about equity and social justice. I can tell you from personal experience as a firefighter that fire doesn't care what color you are, where you live, or anything else. I can also tell you from being a wildland firefighter that the way Washington and Oregon and probably California handle their forest management directly contributes to the massive amounts of wildfires we are seeing. The fact that they have disallowed people to go into the woods or logging companies to go into the woods and thin and remove downed and dead trees because they're considered habitat. You've got a forest floor that's overloaded with fire load. And so when it gets really dry, like it has been the last few years during the summer, one little spark, one little psychotic college professor from California shows up with a flare and some gasoline, well, you're going to have yourself a big out of control fire. And the winds and the weather conditions don't help. But does this talk about forest management? No. It talks about how new neighborhoods are going to be laid out and how much water will have to be available. Water, which in southern Oregon is in short supply. Talks about evacuation routes. It does talk about providing more public education, which, is a good thing. And there should be set evacuation routes. And it talks about cities, setting up plans with their transportation, with their public transportation to provide evacuation routes if necessary. Those are good things. But the fact that it doesn't really address the management of the forest itself and how that's being handled, something's got to be done about all the dead and downed trees and underbrush. But this, like most everything else in these West Coast states, water specifically, if there's some little fish that it might affect, then they're just not going to go there. They're not going to touch it. The fish is more important than the people. The owls are more important than the people. The ground squirrels are more important than the people. It's just the left coast. And here's more good news for Oregon in the criminal justice / public safety realm, which we all know is extremely low on politics minds on the left coast. A federal judge has ruled that the Oregon State Hospital must limit the amount of time it can hold patients charged with crimes in a bid to create space at the overcrowded hospital for criminal defendants who need mental health treatment but are housed in jails. The psychiatric hospital in the state capital, Salem, doesn't have enough personnel or enough space to add more beds, but 73 defendants are currently in jail awaiting court-mandated mental health treatment before they can stand trial, according to court findings. The historic hospital, the setting for Ken Kenzie's acclaimed novel One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and the location where the award-winning movie adaptation was filmed has struggled for years with staffing and patient backlogs. Monday's ruling by Senior U.S. District Judge Michael Mosman caps hospital stays at 3 months for people charged with a misdemeanor, 6 months for felony charges, and a year for violent felonies, including murder and rape. Wow. It seeks to speed up hospital discharges to make more beds available for incoming defendants who need treatment. But some prosecutors worry it will prematurely release patients who have yet to stand trial into communities not equipped to treat them. No kidding, that is definitely going to happen. Maybe the federal government or the state needs to build more mental health hospitals. The mental health situation in this country is a joke, and especially in the West Coast region. Hospitals have been shut down, they're understaffed. I know the one in Washington is constantly under investigation or doing things they shouldn't, or patients are escaping, or there's always some kind of problem. What is the issue? This is important. And you drive around the streets of any of these big cities on the West Coast, and basically you're in a mental hospital. There are homeless, mentally ill people everywhere. Everywhere. And yet these city leaders, these state leaders, and federal leaders don't seem to acknowledge or care about this situation at all. They're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on homeless people with no accountability for the money. It's going to housing or who knows where, because nobody tracks it really, at least in Washington. And that money could be spent to build mental health hospitals to house these people and try to get them better and get them off the street. But since homelessness is the new honey hole for politicians' pockets, that's not going to happen anytime soon. And California leading the nation again. Governor Newsome on Monday signed a nation-leading measure. This is NBC's words, by the way, or Associated Press's words. Giving more than 500,000 fast food workers more power and protections, despite the objections of restaurant owners who warned it would drive up consumer costs. You think? The landmark law creates a 10-member fast food council with equal numbers of workers, delegates, and employers' representatives, along with 2 state officials empowered to set minimum standards for wages, hours, and working conditions in California. Yes, we definitely need more bureaucracy. Newsom said he was proud to sign the measure into law on Labor Day. California is committed to ensuring that the men and women who have helped build our world-class economy are able to share in the state's prosperity. You might not have any power or water, but he said in a statement, today's action gives hardworking fast food workers a stronger voice and seat at the table to set fair wages and critical health and safety standards across the industry. The law caps minimum wage increases for fast food workers at chains with more than 100 restaurants at $22 an hour next year, compared to the statewide minimum wage of $15.50 an hour, with cost of living increases thereafter. State legislature approved the measure on August 29th. Debate split along party lines with Republicans opposed. You gotta love all these people who believe that flipping burgers at McDonald's is a family wage or career position. It's not. It was never meant to be. It's a job to get experience and get into the workplace, or it's a job for retired people who want to make extra money. It is not a job if you want to have a family or earn a living wage. It was never intended to be, and nobody ever thought it was. If you think for 1 second that these businesses that have to pay $7 an hour more to people with, no, you don't need any kind of skill to flip a burger or stand at the counter and act like a douche to take an order. $22 an hour is ridiculous. And I'll tell you what, a lot of other jobs that do require skill are going to look at that and say, we want more money. A lot of other unions are going to use that to raise wages in other sectors, because if burger flippers are getting more money, then look at, I've got a college degree, I've got this trade skill, I want more money. And this is during a recession with massive inflation. So not only are you putting the crunch on business owners trying to survive, but they're going to raise prices on consumers who in turn are going to have to pay even more now to eat out, which, as far as I'm concerned, I don't eat out. You shouldn't eat out. You shouldn't waste your money. Go to the grocery store. Yeah, it's expensive right now too, but it's way cheaper to make your own food than going to these places and eating that unhealthy crap that they serve you. Well, California continuing to lead the way in really good bills. This is from the Los Angeles Times. 2 months after state lawmakers passed sweeping legislation designed to reduce plastic waste, they've ponied up and passed more than a half dozen new bills that will further reduce and clean up California's waste stream. If Governor Gavin Newsomes signs the bills, and most observers think he will, a visit to the grocery store, electronics, or general retail store will fundamentally change for most residents. If any one of these bills had passed, it had been huge, said Nick Lapis, Director of Advocacy for Californians Against Waste. But all of these together, it's incredible. One high-profile bill will affect the plastic bags in the produce and bulk bin sections of grocery stores. Starting in 2025, such bags will have to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. It comes 6 years after California banned single-use checkout bags from grocery and retail stores. Another bill focuses on thermoform plastics, containers that have been molded into shape by heat. Common thermoform plastic items include clamshell containers for food, plastic trays such as the ones that hold baked chicken, cups, and lids. These items will have to contain a certain percentage, 10% by 2025 and 30% by 2030, of recycled plastic. If they can't meet these targets, the company that used the plastic to package the item will have to pay an annual penalty based on their shortfall. Other bills focus on waste generated by batteries, electronics, and wine and spirits bottles, the mercury found in some fluorescent bulbs, and single-use propane canisters, the bane of campgrounds across the state. Sales of such disposable propane containers would be banned starting in 2028, giving a boost to refillable containers, which are becoming more widely available. Also included in the new legislation is a landmark bill that will eliminate a diversion credit municipalities now use to manage waste. The 1989 Integrated Waste Management Act mandates that cities and towns must divert at least 50% of their waste away from landfills and into recycling, composting, or some other form of reuse. It also allows them to send up to 10% of that waste to the 2 solid waste incinerators left in the state, Long Beach's Southeast Resource Recovery Facility and Covanta Stanislaus outside of Modesto. The new bill redefines incineration as disposable, potentially reducing the appeal of this form of waste disposable for cities and towns. So, yeah, just continue piling it somewhere or burying it somewhere, because very little of it actually gets recycled, regardless of what they tell you, or put it on a boat and send it to some third world country and dump it on their land. They're complaining about the incinerators being in populated areas. Well, move the incinerators out to the desert, out to the middle of nowhere, but burn it. Burn it so hot that it doesn't put out a bunch of crappy smoke. They try to make you feel so good about recycling when it just ends up going, a lot of it, on some boat to some third world country and ends up right on top of the land somewhere, polluting their land. But I guess we don't care because it's not here. It's not in our backyard, right? And finally, there's a bill that focuses on waste generated by human cadavers when they are embalmed or cremated. Modeled after Washington's human body composting law, the bill will allow California cemeteries and crematoriums to adopt more environmentally friendly practices such as decomposition. I'm not sure what waste is created by cremation. Maybe they're talking about the smoke. There can be no smoke. But these people are lunatics, and this is what they spend their time on, is this stuff, when everything else is falling apart right now. Supply chains, energy, water, Inflation. Especially in California, these things are hitting hard. And this is what these politicians are focusing on. Plastic. How to dispose of a human body. Maybe because they know when the power goes out and the electricity doesn't work and there's food shortages, they're going to have a lot of bodies to deal with. And also in California, school districts are having a major teacher shortage, not surprisingly. Maybe they need some sort of council fighting for their wages too. Or maybe they should just go flip burgers in California. Anyway, a California school district is trying a new way to retain teachers. Low-cost apartments on school property. Yes, you heard it. The school district has built a 122-unit apartment complex that was approved by local voters and built for teachers and staff on property owned by the Jefferson Union High School District. This is just south of San Francisco. It's very spacious, said Michael Ott, who teaches biology at Jefferson High School, which is also in the district. Extremely roomy. Ott said that an average two-bedroom apartment in the neighborhood would cost more than $3,000 per month. Her rent is $1,600. If I hadn't gotten housing, it would have been really challenging for me to make ends meet, she said, later adding, being able to live in a place where I feel like I can recharge, I feel a weight lifted off my shoulders. Jonathan Krupp, who has taught social science for 13 years, told CBS News he was absolutely blown away by the idea. There are no words to describe it, he said. I think this gives teachers hope. While other school districts still have vacancies, Cary and said Terra Nova High School is fully staffed. One of those staffers is Eric Willamese, who says he wouldn't have been able to coach cross-country without the subsidized apartment. Delivering pizzas actually pays more than coaching in this district, he said, calling the apartment program a godsend. That is pathetic and sad. And that the state leaders don't recognize the importance of people in these teaching positions, coaching positions, working at these schools, raising our kids, teaching our kids. Are you kidding me? And they're worried about fast food workers. How about teachers that spend at least 8 hours a day with our kids? It's really sad to me that this is what teachers have to do, and it's unfair to them. To me, it's borderline communism. It's government subsidized housing. You work for the government, you live in the government housing, the government's got total say-so over you. And the taxpayers are footing the bill, of course. I don't know what the answer is. The Democrat policies on the West Coast have left these cities' economies in shambles. They can tell you or say whatever they want, but prices on the West Coast for everything from real estate to gas to food to energy are skyrocketing. And they're passing laws about plastic and fast food workers. And that fast food worker thing is just going to contribute to the problem. And this has to be my favorite story from California. The in-laws of Democratic Governor Gavin Newsomes give money to one of his biggest political foes, and they fled from his state during the pandemic. Kenneth F. Sable Jr. and Judith A. Sable, parents of Newsome's wife Jennifer Sable and longtime California residents, became Florida residents in 2020 after purchasing a $3.3 million Naples home in March of that year, records show. The Sables appear to have ownership of their California home in northern San Francisco suburb of Ross. Newsome's in-laws, however, officially became registered voters in the Sunshine State as of June 2020. Kenneth Sable is a registered Republican, while Judith Sable has no party affiliation. The voter registration shift occurred as their son-in-law enacted some of the country's strictest COVID lockdowns, which have widely been juxtaposed to the lack of restrictions in red states like Florida. Neither the Sables nor Governor Gavin Newsome's office immediately responded to Fox News requests for comment. And that tells you all you need to know about Gavin Newsom and his state of California, doesn't it? Thank you for listening to the Behind the Line podcast. For more, visit behindthelinepodcast.com. You can also find us on netnewsnetwork.net, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Telegram, Gab, Parler, and Truth Social. Please like, share, and subscribe.